And the culture hasn't changed the field boundaries, hasn't changed the place names, and has left all of the ancient monuments intact. And that is a wonderful thing. It's a part of Britain that has retained its ancient heritage, whereas most other parts of Britain has lost it.
Right, hello, welcome back to Britain's Hidden History, where I've got author of this wonderful book, Hugh Evans, with me. I'm going to do a little talk about the book, some general background, because we have a whole series of videos coming out this week from our wonderful trip up to Gwynedd. You can see the views, it's spectacular. You can see how this all works. So good morning, Hugh. How are you today?
Hi there, Ross. I'm well. How are you?
Excellent, thank you. Excellent. Full of the joys of spring, and it's only January, so there you go.
Good.
Right, so let's dive in then with because we had a great time, so we got to know each other quite well on our trip around Gwynedd. And just going to go back. I mean, to explain to people first of all, let's talk about the title of the book. When you talk about the origin of the zodiac, what do you mean by a zodiac, and how does that tie in with Gwynedd? I know it's a huge question, just to sort of give an idea.
Okay, well, the zodiac that people probably know most well is the 12 constellations and the 12 star signs. So everybody has a star sign. I was born at the end of May. My star sign is Gemini, and there is also a star constellation above us called Gemini, and the 12 star signs represent the 12 constellations above. So as I explored and found out more about the constellations laid out on the ground in North Wales in Gwynedd, it became apparent to me that the whole 12 constellations of the zodiac were there, and that this was the origin of the zodiac. There is no other place on the face of the planet that can claim to be the origin of the zodiac.
Why is that then? What's special about Gwynedd?
What is special about Gwynedd is that the features on the ground actually, for some of the constellations, determine the constellations themselves. So in every other instance that I'm aware of, if there is a zodiac on the ground, it's either not complete or just copies what is already there. In Gwynedd, the ground features actually determine the stars that were chosen above for the constellation, for some of them, not for all of them. So
when so you say, like, the hills, the mountains, the rivers, I mean, is that the sort of thing that would form it? I mean, I've got a pretty good idea. There's
yes, and they have been embellished, if you like, with standing stones, stone circles, cairns, and that sort of thing. So there are three main type of star parts of the star map. There are those parts that closely resemble the heavens above, such as the plough at Cader Idris. There are 7 peaks along that ridge, and it very closely represents the plough. There are ground features that are very particular, and above them the stars are not so particular. So the stars were chosen to reflect the ground features below, the rivers, the mountains, stone circles, the cairns. So a good example is Pisces. The constellation Pisces above us is not on or near the Milky Way, so it doesn't have a very large number of distinct stars. So you can just choose the stars to reflect the ground features below, and that's what the ancients have done. And then there are constellations above that are very distinct, and that if they're going to be fixed on the star map below, if there are no features that are clear on the star map below, then the land has been embellished with standing stones, stone circles, and cairns. And we have been to Llynau Cregennan and seen those exactly that sort of constellation, which is Corona Borealis. There isn't very many ground features that are very distinct. So the ancient people have erected a ring of standing stones and made two lakes. And that is the constellation of Corona Borealis on the star maps in Gwynedd.
Okay, yeah. So when I was looking at, I mean, what makes the one of the things that really resonated with me in the book was why or how they chose the stars they did. Because when I look up, I just see millions and millions of stars, and it's a bit like cloud gazing. You can see whatever you want to see. So I mean, why did they? I'm looking at the book. It made me think, because they didn't just choose the brightest stars, and that's when it starts to get interesting, isn't it? They haven't just picked the brightest stars. They seem to pick stars for a reason. I mean, that's something you'd like to tell us a bit more about.
Yes, I think it just reflected how they developed their mythology, their spirituality, and wanted the world they lived in, the mortal world, which is the in their spirituality is the middle plane, if you like, and the spiritual plane is above us. The mortal world is the plane we live in through our mortal lives, and the underworld, which isn't hell, is beneath us. So they wanted to reflect their mythology, their understanding of the world, and they chose the features on the ground to reflect that, and then chose the stars above to reflect their beliefs if there wasn't clear stars available above them. So Pisces is a good example, because on the ground it is a line of cairns and stone circles from Llandyrfel down to Corwen along the Dee River, and then along the Alwyn River to Carregid Druidon. And there are lots of stars around and in the sky above us, the night sky above us. None are particularly bright, and there are some bright stars in that region that have actually been left out. But the stars they have chosen reflect the features on the ground, and where there are stone circles or cairns, standing stones, they normally represent a star above. Now, over the passage of years, some of those have perhaps gone, but most of them are still there. So I think it just represented their belief about their world. Pisces has a particular meaning. It is the last star sign of the 12 signs of the zodiac. And when you analyze the meaning of the two fishes and the ribbon that joins them, it actually means this is the last sign of the zodiac. And that's not written in my book. That will be part of my follow-on book. And also perhaps when I get to do all the star signs on my YouTube channel, I'll be talking about that then.
Yeah, because one of the things that the most dramatic features, which makes the case of Gwynedd being special, is some of those major constellations are marked out by the actual mountains, aren't they? I mean, we're talking huge mountains.
Yeah.
Marking out.
Well,
you tell me, yes. Pardon?
Cedar Idris and its peaks along that ridge are the stars of the plough.
Yes.
That was probably one of their start points when they realized they had such a wonderful palette to explain their mythology, their spirituality, and reflect the stars above. And as I said a moment ago, the stars above are their spiritual plane. And as I have researched and tried to understand the star maps, I have tried to understand how the ancients felt about it all. You know, the interpretation of the Milky Way was an absolute revelation to me. I believe the ancients felt it was a great travelator of souls, spirituality, and wellness from our ancient forebears, from the spiritual world above into the mortal world, our mortal world, and then out of the mortal world as it passes the ecliptic into the underworld. And then the large constellation immediately under the ecliptic in the underworld on the Milky Way is the Great Ship. And that was the last journey that souls would take to the west to be with our ancestors, to start the whole cycle again. So the star maps and the cosmos above us, the heavens above us, are represented by three circles. They are the Milky Way that goes across the top, and it crosses the ecliptic, comes in from the spirit world, crosses the ecliptic, goes across the pole, and then crosses the ecliptic again down into the underworld. There's the ecliptic itself, which is a circle around the edge, if you like, or the circumference, like an equator. And then there is another circle that goes over the top, which is the epic of creation. And these circles are actually specified, written out in the Enuma Elish, that is the epic of creation, and the epic of Gilgamesh as well, which is the 12 constellations of the zodiac. And they are translatable using Welsh, the living remnant of ancient British. And it appears to me that those civilizations that wrote down those stories had heard it from a previous civilization and told it in the way that they understood it. But the origin is in North Wales at Gwynedd, because that is the only place that does not have an antecedent.
Right, let's literally put things in perspective now and have a look at the map, and Hugh can talk us through it, because what's remarkable about this, what makes this leap out, is how the mountains themselves, the major geographical features, match the star map. Now, you can't move the mountains, and there's a choice involved in which stars you pick. So it seems to be that way around, where the stars are picked to match the mountains. Even before you come on to the obvious man-made additions to make this work even better, like circles of stones and cromlechs, place names, church sites, farms. The whole thing creates this enormous picture. But the starting point is very much the major mountains and rivers form your basic zodiac. I mean, it's quite remarkable. I mean, can you show us a bit more about that, please, Hugh?
Yes, of course. So we can see Great Britain, and now we can zoom into North Wales. I'm just going to put all the constellations on to start with. There's all the information.
Right, so that's our area. That's our 1,500 square mile zodiac.
Yeah,
If you can explain a bit there about the orange and blue lines and what's going on, that'd be great.
I found some more constellations since I wrote that. It's now more like 2,000 square miles.
Oh, right.
But, at the start, I started here with the plough. I started looking at Cedar Idris. This is the mountain of Cedar Idris. And I'd read a book by Mike Harris called Arwen, and he'd identified the plough here, the little plough.
Can I just ask, before we move on, just I won't go through all of them, but just with this one with the plough. So what, because the line you've drawn does match with what we would see in the night sky. How would you decide that line, and where would the corners and the points, how would you work that out? When you say you can see the plough there, what can you see? What makes that the place?
Well, the peaks reflect the stars above, and the names of the peaks are also important. So since writing my book, I have found out that in the Book of Enoch, these peaks are actually referred to as where Enoch went to map the stars in the Book of Enoch, and they're all got colors, and they are listed in the Book of Enoch. So initially it was my interpretation, but it was later corroborated by the Book of Enoch.
Excellent. So what you're saying, so those corners, as it were, they represent peaks of mountains, is that right?
These all represent peaks, and they all have names, and those names are associated with colors, and those colors are written in the Book of Enoch.
Right, okay, because from the map, it just looks like a line. You want to see why those corners are there. And they do fit on the peaks and the names. And there are more details in here, so I'm just just giving people a
Yeah.
flavour. If you want to just talk more about the overall thing and give some more idea, that'd be great.
You can see the peaks.
Right,
Feels a bit
right.
better.
Zoom in, you can see the peaks. There we are. There else I wanted to see. Fantastic.
You know, and they might be slightly different around here, but these peaks here have names. I think that one's called Black, and in the book of Enoch it talks about one of the peaks being a black peak.
Because you've got the lake there as well. I seem to remember that's significant as well, isn't it? The lake in the middle.
Linicada.
Yes. Well, the two lakes, is that one, the one below it as well? Yeah.
Yeah, there's two lakes there. I mean, these lakes are important here.
Yeah, the lakes play into it, don't they? Which is remarkable, especially because one of the lakes, it seems, has been fiddled a bit, doesn't it? It's like a man-made part. But that's more details. Let's go over the whole thing and give an overall view of the ecliptic and how these things all work.
So the orange line represents the ecliptic. And as I researched...
Sorry, I just want to jump in. I'll try to do it again. But just to explain that the ecliptic is like effectively the horizon. So as Hugh was saying earlier, as I understand anyway, Hugh can correct me now, if you imagine the night sky like a ball around us, so you've got the ones in the top half that we can see, and the ones in the bottom half you can't see. And then throughout the year, this will vary as due to the angles and everything. But this is that's an approximation or a representation of the visible skyline, would you call it, or horizon, I suppose? Is that a fair description?
Because we're inclined to the sun, we will get a summer and a winter. So through the year, we see more and less of the constellations that are in the north or in the south of the celestial heavens. So, for example, Orion is actually in the southern celestial heavens. But you can see Orion. You can go up to the Garth and see Orion, and you've got cairns on top of the Garth that represent Orion. The ecliptic is just the apparent path of the sun through the constellations, and it's also the path that the planets take through the heavens. And if you look at the speed and the positioning of the planets and the ones that are visible over a long period of time, you can create a calendar and a time frame. So if you say this is Scorpio here, if Jupiter is in Scorpio and Mars is in Aries and Venus is in Leo, that will only represent 1 month of 1 year in maybe 40 years. So understanding where the planets are in relation to the 12 signs of the zodiac, which is why there are 12.
And how does the orange line manifest itself in Gwynedd then? Is there anything particular to make it say, oh, this is it, look, this is the eclipse?
They are the rivers. They were the rivers, and that was the big breakthrough for me, to realizing that they were the rivers. Because once you realize that the ecliptic are the rivers in Gwynedd, you can look and find quite easily all of the constellations of the zodiac.
Yeah, I have to say, I mean, you can see just about on the Google Earth the two estuaries, the one by Portmaddock and the one down here, well, above Aberystwyth. So you can actually follow the rivers. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, and I've only done it roughly with my orange line, but they're the two.
The rivers themselves map out the routes. It's quite remarkable.
And I mean, there are a few breaks, but yeah, so the Dovey goes up to roughly the source of the Pleiades, and then you have the D coming down here, and the Awen to there, then the Conwy, and then I'll get this wrong, Dubby. No, I can't remember what that river's called.
Yeah, and I think if you look in the book as well, it's very evocative, those names, then their meanings, because this also ties in with the Milky Way, I think, doesn't it? The rivers.
Well, this is the Milky Way. I'm not sure if it can. Has the whole of Anglesey on it, but certainly it comes down the Cleve Peninsula into the star map area and then out into the underworld, and exits near Aberystwyth back in towards the west. And there is the great ship constellation.
So that white area you created is the Milky Way?
That's the Milky Way, yes, that white area.
Cool. Oh, that's brilliant. And what's the blue line then?
The blue line,
blue area.
Blue area is a sort of concept. These are the St. Michael churches around the just around the ecliptic. And St. Michael, from the book of Revelations and from the book of Enoch, is the archangel that defends the mortal world from the ingress of the underworld. And in the star maps of Gwynedd, the churches are very important. And the churches sit on very ancient sites, more ancient than their Christian namesakes today, or and there are two on the Milky Way coming in, two St. Michael's churches. There are two on the Milky Way going out. There are four around the corners of the mortal plane, and there is one in the middle. And there are St. Mary's churches that represent all the major stars in the star map area. And there are no St. Mary's churches anywhere else in this area that don't represent a major star. I think there is one in Machynlleth, and the church has been rededicated because the original church was probably the sacred site in Machynlleth.
Yeah, because it's fascinating, that, isn't it? That it makes your mind wonder then, because this knowledge must have been still known when the churches are being renamed and changed. They haven't. What was interesting to me, they haven't completely obliterated the map. They've just changed names and repurposed.
Some of the churches have had their names changed, but if you look back far enough, you can see that they were originally St. Mary's. Yes. We have been to a lot of these sites, you and I, and we have also looked at the gravestones, and people have maintained this spirituality up to really quite recently. A lot of the gravestones in North Wales, I'm not sure about South Wales, and the stars represented the souls of and the spirit of our ancestors. The Milky Way was the great travelator of goodness, wellness, Awen, from the west, coming in the Llyn Peninsula, from the spirit's world over Mount Snowdon, which is the great sepulchre to our ancestors, into the mortal world, through the two major gods in the center here, Beli, Mor, and Don, and through Don's cauldron, the Awen pours out of the Milky Way into the River Dee, comes down off this major mountain, flows down into the valley through beautiful Lake Llyn Tegid, Trebala, and then out towards Corwen. And it was only water from this river, this most sacred river, that the Druids were allowed to use in their ceremonies. And then the Milky Way travels through into the underworld, and when a soul passed, it went and joined the stream of ancestors, went on the great ship and off to the west, which is the Book of the Dead, really. So the Egyptian Book of the Dead has inherited its mythology from the ancient British mythology.
Oh yeah, this is just fantastic. I mean, that's what I showed a clip on last night's show, and I'll put the video being our series, probably number 7, I think, where you can stand on Cadair Idris and you can watch this procession, if you want to call it that, of the sunsets, sunrises across, well, sunsets across the sea, and you can see that pouring that into the Llyn Peninsula. That's when we're
So
talking about that. That's
we were
on the
here.
map.
We were standing over here, Ross.
Right,
by,
okay.
Corona Borealis. See if I've got a.
And that's all Cadre Idris, or was that next to it?
Yeah, I
It's
mean
next
that's
to it,
next to Cadre Idris. Yeah, there's Cadre Idris. It's all part of the same range here. But there's a spot here that you can see all the sunsets from one peninsula to the other peninsula.
Yes.
So you'd be able to understand what part of the year you were at.
And this tie in then with the old thing about Idris, the great astronomer, sitting in his chair looking.
Yeah.
It all makes sense because you can from up there you can watch it all. It's an uninterrupted view. It's just water in the way, isn't it? It's fantastic. Well, sky and water because you're very high up. It's just the more you look at it. I mean, it like once you piece this information together, and you can go through in the book. You can go through the different. I just open a random page. You can see each star sign's got a map. It explains the stars of it, and the words all get explained. The Welsh words and how they tie in with what we know as zodiac signs, and that's where it starts to get really remarkable for me. I've just opened this randomly. Capricorn, 2 horns. So in Welsh, then we've got Dwi Corniog, 2 horns.
That's
and then the intended word from that then is divine or crown, because the great thing with Welsh, you've got this dual meaning of all your words. So Corniog also means crown, and that's your divine crown. Then you've got actually some hieroglyphs there, some Cymriglyphics comes in, because that's the same sort of principles, this dual use of the Welsh language. And then you form what the Pisces, you go through them all again, is the God feared on earth, above and below. It's very comprehensive. It's hard to, I don't know, I can't think how you can refute this anything but a zodiac, really. I guess the questions which throw people are how and why, but I mean, sometimes I think it's best not to worry about those. First of all, establish, there it is. You can observe it.
Someone asked me recently why, and at that point I hadn't really thought about it to a great extent, but I have since. And you need to be able to understand time and plot the passage of time to be able to establish a society. And I'm reminded of Harrison's marine chronometer from I think it was the 1700s. The establishment at that time needed to understand how to navigate the oceans better.
Yeah, in search of longitude, wasn't it? Yeah, yeah.
Yes, and the marine chronometer was invented, and that was probably one of the main inventions that empowered the Navy and allowed the British Empire to expand so rapidly. So if you wanted to have all your resources at a point in time across the globe and bring resources from several places, you need to be able to chart time. And those people that chart time and command it, they are in an unassailable position. And the star maps of Gwynedd were the same sort of thing that the ancients were trying to do. They were trying to understand time and establish a means, a global or a universal means of measuring time, and that's how they established their world. You know, are we talking about the civilization that was lost before the cataclysm, before the Noah flood? You know, some people call it Atlantis. We don't know much about that at all, but there are survivors of Atlantis. We are all survivors of that cataclysm, and there are other fragments that have survived, whether they are the pyramids or other ancient artifacts. But there is also fragments of a language, and is the ancient language of the civilization before the Noah flood, certainly, and before that even, was it ancient British or something like that? Was it ubiquitous across the world, and is the only living remnant now Welsh? And I would say yes to all of those.
No, the language does seem, well, Alan Wilson calls it a living fossil, which I think is a wonderful expression for it, because it does give us an insight to what the ancients seem to be trying to communicate or do. Because just to wrap things up, I just want to mention, we'll be seeing on the videos, we visit a lot of these places. You also got Hugh's channel as well, where he goes in, well, there's more and more videos coming out all the time explaining more about this. And the videos from our trip, what amazed me, and I had the advantage of going around with Hugh, was how many places you can, the names and the churches and the objects are still there. This is a remarkable thing.
They are.
And even there. What was the hotel you stayed at? What was it called again? Well, I say hotel, farm, wasn't it? It was a farm, really.
Bryn Sion.
Bryn Sion, yeah, even that, wasn't it? The hill was, he didn't know what it meant, did he? The farmer himself.
Yeah. So that was over here in Taurus, and there's a group of stars here called the Hyades, and it's in this valley here. In fact, there is the farm.
Oh, there it is, Bryn Sion,
wonderful family, and this is just a time capsule of beauty, and it's just wonderful to behold. But Bryn is a hill, but it's also a heap or a pile, and
that was
Sion,
it. Yes.
Mr. Edwards told us that in years gone by it was spelt with an E in the middle there as well, and that is the root for stars. So a heap of stars, and this is where the Hyades star cluster is. And you can go around the whole of the star map, and there is so many places that still reflect the star maps. And I would just implore everybody not to change their place names. They need to be preserved for forever. And everywhere you go, you can see more. I mean, the work in my book, I've got probably 10 times as much research, and nothing is out of place or quarrels with what I put in the book. I mean, you could just go on and on and on. And it's probably the society didn't want to change what they had. They were intimately involved with the land and their spiritual vision of life and the world. Why would you want to change that? They were living in perfect harmony. And the gravestones right up to modern times have sun on and a branch, Gwynedd, meaning lineage. And the culture hasn't changed the field boundaries, hasn't changed the place names, and has left all of the ancient monuments intact. And that is a wonderful thing. It's a part of Britain that has retained its ancient heritage, whereas most other parts of Britain has lost it. And I feel absolutely overjoyed that I'm able to talk about this subject. It's very passionate to me.
Yeah, I think you do a great job on it as well. And you make an excellent point. It's very worrying that a lot of these ancient, it turns out, farms and their ancient names are being, I don't want to get too political or anything, but they are being incorporated in corporations, or people are just buying the farmhouses as a place to retire to or move to, and just changing the names. It's just, we've already seen a couple up there. Just put some random English name on it, like I don't mean English language name. There's some shockers, like just the Blue Farm or something. Just a random name on it, or Debbie's Last Hurrah. It's they don't seem to have any respect at all for how crucial these ancient names are. And
they're unaware, but they're probably unaware that the newcomers, but the local people are aware, and they don't want it. They want it to change, and it should be protected.
And economics is pushing them out, isn't it? This is it's not a. I mean, the younger people don't necessarily want to be farmers, and the price of properties and all that kind of stuff. It's under threat. So it's one of these things that you've done just in time, and it's fantastic you've done it, because this research is going to would be more difficult as we move on rather than easier. As more and more these sites, and even some of the stone circles and stuff, it's quite the thing that stays constant. I think we can be confident about are the mountains. They're not going anywhere, and that's the big clue to all this, I suppose, isn't it?
Yes.
Is there anything else you'd like to say on this, Hugh?
No, I'd just like to say that I'm continuing my research. I've identified a lot more of the constellations in the southern hemisphere, and I've also been working on the names of these constellations and what they mean. So, for example, Sagittarius, here is Sagittarius over here. The word Sagittarius is actually a Welsh word, or a series of Welsh words, and it is explained perfectly by the star map, and that is why the constellation is called Sagittarius. Same with Scorpio.
There's Pen Mackino's next to it, yeah.
And actually, the Scorpion has got its name from the constellation Scorpio, not the other way around.
I think you see, actually looks like a scorpion, and they got the tail there.
I think originally it was a lobster.
Right. Yeah, Michael Lobster, perhaps. Yeah, I understand. Yes, and it is fascinating.
When Enoch came back from the Middle East,
got the bookshop for sale on the website. So Hugh's giving me a limited number discount there, as you can buy them from Hugh, other places. I will put a link up to Hugh's channel because you really want to watch it. It gets really fascinating.
Thank you.
And we have this series of short videos with breathtaking scenery where we visit a lot of these sites, and you can see for yourself the beauty, the alignments. Hugh just hinted there about churches. We can see churchyards aligned on rising suns on certain days, with suns on the gravestones rather than crosses. It's just runs through the very fabric of that region, which the northwest corner of Wales is, of course, the spiritual reason of Wales. It's fantastic. So thank you, Hugh. Thank you for saving this. Thank you for a wonderful tour of the area. And I hope you go up again. And then I'm going to start putting those videos up. People can have a good look for themselves. I think they'll enjoy them.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, cheers, Hugh. See you again soon.